Welcome back to the Growing Band Director Podcast. I'm here with Larry Clark at Midwest. How are you, Larry?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Fantastic. We're here at the Excelcia booth, the mammoth Excelcia booth.
Mammoth? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we're getting there.
yeah,
A little bit at a time.
yeah. I just want to extend a sincere thank you for allowing me to be a small part of this.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah,
Very much what you're doing and the feedback that you're giving teachers and the resource that this is great. I've been on a lot of podcasts, but sometimes they're just about, what I do as a composer and stuff like that. But it's not nitty-gritty stuff that teachers need that are in the classroom every day. And that's fantastic that you do that.
Thank you. That's my life as a band director, right? I got a 14-minute commute to school. If I'm going to listen to something, I want to have it worth my time.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't want to listen to music
I understand.
because the kids they've turned that out of me right now, right? So
yeah, for sure.
yeah. So tell us about Excelcia.
Well, Excelcia is a little project I started 6.5 years ago. Before that, I worked at Carl Fisher for almost 19 years, and before that at Warner Brothers. So I've been in publishing for almost 3 decades. 20. This is going on my 30th year. So I started that in 2018, and it started with myself and Tyler Arcari. We were the two people in the little office that I rented to get this thing off the ground, and our first day was putting together chairs and furniture and stuff like that. And we've grown now to 12 employees.
How did you come across Tyler? Where is that connection happening?
Tyler, I actually published some of his music at Carl Fisher. And when he was very young and basically just started teaching high school himself. And I just saw something. I saw a spark and I saw something wonderful about his writing. And I just took a chance, because I wanted somebody that I could train like I was trained in the business by a man named Sandy Feldstein, which a lot of, band directors know Sandy's music. He was a great big mentor for me in the music publishing business, and I'm passing it on. And I've spent most of my career editing music, picking music for Carl Fisher and Warner Brothers and putting music out there for people to buy. So I wanted to be educational as a former middle school band director and a college band director, and trying to teach Tyler that process. And Tyler now does a lot of the editing for me at Excelcia. And then like I said, we've grown to now 12 people, and it's now 4 different companies with Wingert Jones and Kendor Music and RBC. And those came along, a few years in after people saw the success that we started to have. And the biggest thing that we wanted to do from the start was to provide composers a better place to be. I had felt throughout my career that the music publishing business moved away from the composer being the important component of what a music publisher is. And I wanted to change that. Matter of fact, I almost called the company Composer First Publishing, because I really wanted to be focused on them. Because to be honest with you, as a composer myself, it is about the composer. Without the composer, we have absolutely nothing to sell. And they're the creativity that gives us all the great music that all of us as band people want, to have, that we want to have that wonderful creative work. So we support those composers. We promote them greatly. We started out at the very beginning saying, hey, send us when you're doing a clinic, send us when you're doing a premiere. And they're like, well, but I'm doing that for another publisher that I write for. We don't care. We want to represent you, the person, and we want to build you, the composer, and make you the important thing in what we do. And every decision we make, everything we do at Excelcia is built around that. And what I'm proud to say now, we have 12 exclusive composers that are exclusive to us because they've.
So people who don't know what that means, what does that mean?
That means that basically we publish everything that they write.
Yeah.
And they have an agreement with us to allow us to publish all the music that they write, moving forward for the term of the contract. And we hope they'll want to do it for a very, very long time. But we also represent, with all 4 companies now, over 500 composers. So we have to take care of all of them. And it's difficult sometimes because it's a lot of music and it's a lot of people. But, we want to make all these folks feel like, they're super important. Simple things. We host a dinner every year at this convention. We'll have over 75 people at this dinner, and we just treat them like kings. It's a great, wonderful, collegial environment. We have great food. We have some drinks, and it's just wonderful. It's to the point now where we even have a Facebook page. It's a composer sort of collective. We exchange ideas on a closed Facebook group, and a lot of them have now become great friends. They take vacations together, all kinds of stuff. So we've created a community. And it's similar to how you build a band program, right? You want to create that community. You want to create that where the students love to be in the band room at lunchtime, all that sort of stuff. That's what we're just building here. It just happens to be a publishing company.
That's awesome. So as a band director who doesn't know much about this, what is the editing process? I mean, you get a piece submitted to you, and you have to change a bunch of things to make it where you want it to be.
Not necessarily always that, because a lot of the composers that write for us regularly understand a lot of that. But sometimes it's simple things like, hey, did you realize that the oboe went out of range here for this grade level? Or, hey, do you think this transition is good enough to get us to the climax that you're after? Or, hey, maybe why did you add this really difficult rhythm only in this one spot in the piece? It might be better if you didn't do that, because that one little thing takes it out of the grade level.
So your experience as a teacher, as well as your experience as a composer, both go into being able to edit.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I'm in band rooms all the time. People ask me to come in their band rooms to work with one of my own pieces. I work with other people's pieces, do honor bands and stuff like that. And so I still get to stay in touch with what's happening in a middle school band room and what those teachers are dealing with on a daily basis. And we are trying to provide resources and music that will stimulate the kids and help the teachers teach. One of the things I always tell people is sometimes I'll write a difficult rhythm in even an easy piece, but I'll use that as sort of the cell, the rhythmic cell that I'll use over and over and over again as sort of the motif. So those students will know that rhythm and then they're done. So it's a teaching moment.
Like 1E, a 2, or something that we don't see enough. Yeah.
Right. So then you just kind of work that into the composition to make that, really something that's a teachable moment.
What about if you take a step back from your role in Excelcia as the owner? What about when you're talking to band directors about repertoire in general?
Yeah.
Older repertoire, newer repertoire, any messages that you might have people of maybe composers they forgot about that they should still play, or any?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of them. We don't play enough anymore. Frank Erickson, for example.
I am.
Well, good for you. But you know what? His music is more difficult today than it was when he wrote it, because bands are different today than they were then. Instrumentation, there wasn't any such thing back in the old days of reduced instrumentation for younger groups. We do that now. A grade 1 piece has limited instrumentation. Even a grade 2 piece maybe only has 2 clarinet parts, or one of the clarinet parts is below the break, stuff like that. So we have to look at those differences, but those are still fantastic pieces. Charlie Carter was somebody Charles Carter that I grew up with at Florida State when I was there, and he was the arranging composition.
The piece I know of his is Overture for Winds. I love that piece.
Is huge, and then Symphonic.
It's such a great piece.
Yeah. And so those are great pieces, but they're scored differently in a way that makes them a little more difficult. Like flute parts are really high, for example.
I had somebody tell me once, like we were in an honor band doing Elsa, right?
Yeah.
And not the Frozen Elsa, the Elsa's Procession. If people don't know. And they said one of the reasons to do this music is because it requires your clarinet players to live up there with the flutes.
Yeah.
And like now, a lot of times publishers don't do that in a certain grade levels.
Right.
And that, you're right. They all have to play above the staff.
Yeah.
And it's really nice when they don't have to. Right. Because like that, there's a reason publishers do that.
Well, there's always an insatiable desire to play new music. That's good for a publishing company because we're always putting out new music, but it's also bad for a publishing company because sometimes really great music goes by the wayside really quickly. It doesn't hang around for a long period of time. I mean, as a composer myself, I would love it for, more of my music from even 10 years ago was played more. But, everybody's always looking for the newest, biggest, newest shiny thing. And I think we need to really step back and look at more of composers that you already like to see what other music they have that's in their catalog, earlier in their career or whatever. It's just,
or maybe it's been 15 years since you've played Pierre LaPlante and like you should do it again.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it's sometimes regionally dependent. Like Pierre LaPlante gets played a lot in Florida, for example, where I live, but maybe not as much in other parts of the country. His music's challenging because he does a lot of, I would call him modernized Grunman, where they're folk song settings and there's a lot of transitions. there's key changes, there's all that stuff. And that makes it more difficult. But kids got to learn that. And that's really important because, you know, when they go on into high school literature and stuff like that, they're going to encounter that much, much more. Because then if you play like even a holiday medley that's got a couple key changes or whatever, it's, you know, it's going to be more difficult.
His music has depth. Like you can work on it and keep working on it and keep working on it. And there's always more there. It's not one of those like, okay, we learned it, wrap it up and leave.
My thing though is try to find music that has depth no matter what circumstance. Even if you're doing a Christmas tune, try to find something that's really well written, that really speaks to you, speaks to the kids, because you're spending time on it. And I don't want to see anybody waste time in their classroom, in their band rehearsals on a piece that's just not worthy of their time.
Yeah, they need to be thoughtful in how they choose the repertoire ahead of time, but they go through it. And
is that to say you can't do something that's a tongue in cheek or a funny or a comedy sort of a Christmas tune or holiday tune? Of course not. But it can be well written. It can be well crafted by that arranger.
So I mean, it's like you set me up. I have an episode coming out tomorrow. Of course, this is going to come out later, but where I talk about using holiday music to teach time signatures, like cut time and 6/8.
Absolutely.
So there's two that I've done that are fantastic arrangements. One is I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas, and another one is a Chris Sharp Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer. Like those are silly tunes.
Of course.
But the trombones get the melody and it's in cut time.
Well, that's the other big one for me is play music where all of your instrumentalists in all sections get important stuff, especially at the lower grade levels. I highly always encourage our composers, you know, who would want to play trombone if you're only giving them whole notes? Who would want to play tuba if you're only doing whole notes?
And a lot of times, like those trombones will get it, but they do forget tuba. Like getting
right. The other thing is I think it's important. I don't think we play enough unison.
Agreed.
I always call it unison's a great equalizer, right? So write out the melody for everybody and learn the melody so that then the tubas and the trombones and anybody who has accompaniment figures can learn the phrasing of the melodic material. And then that way they're going to be more exposed to that. And they're going to have an opportunity to grow from learning the melody. And they're also going to like it because they actually get to play it if the tune doesn't actually have a part. But I encourage composers, especially writing for younger students, they got to write essential material for all of the sections, or it's not going to be good for the teacher.
Yep.
You know,
you were mentioning those. I call them companion guides. Some people call them one sheets or whatever.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of people who've sent them to me and I've compiled them and kind of put them out on Facebook too and stuff. So those are essential. They learn the piece so much faster.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And my thing is the more unison A2s and more unison studies and fundamentals you do, the music's the easy part after that.
Sure.
You know, because that stuff's difficult if you're learning all your scales, if you're learning all you're playing chorales, if you're doing technique exercises, the music's the easy part. Because people get afraid because we're so performance oriented. It's like I got to get ready for the concert. I got to get ready for the concert.
We're all guilty. Yeah.
But you could get ready for the concert quicker if they're fundamentally sound. You know, that's really important.
I've also found that if you schedule more performances, they will be ready quicker because they have to get ready for the performance.
You know, it even happens on our recording sessions. If I booked 6 hours for recording, it'll take us 6 hours. If I booked 5 hours of recordings, it would take us 5 hours. So it happens with professionals too.
That's crazy. So where do you see Excelcia going? Is there anything on the horizon that you...
Well, we're continuing to grow. We're continuing to put out new products, new methods and materials, continue to put out new music each year. You know, we're going into our season of recording as right after the holidays. We'll record 83 band pieces this coming January. We're going to record 60 some jazz ensemble pieces. We're going to record 75 orchestra pieces. We've already recorded 60 choral works. So we're just continuing to expand the catalog that way. But we're also really thinking hard about how we're going to differentiate the music that we publish from others. Of course, every publisher has great composers and great music and stuff like that. But what are we doing as a publisher to help the teacher teach better? And that could be through methods, but it could be also through materials that we provide that is somehow a supplement to the actual music itself. And that may include technology. We're looking into ways that we can do more of those sorts of things too. You know, and just continue to expand
what percentage of your music ends up with the score and sound on YouTube?
All of it.
All of it. That's awesome.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah.
That's huge. I think more and more people are doing that, and it's so helpful.
Yeah, everything that we've published since 2018 has a score. We call it score video.
Yep.
Where it's the score flips and you can hear your professional recordings. During COVID, we did have to do some recordings in a way I wasn't that happy with, because I always tell the musicians at our recordings that these are examples for students. So I want you to play, even if it's a grade half piece, I want you to play as musical as you possibly can, because some student is going to listen to this and emulate what you're doing. And also those recordings are using Make Music Cloud, Practice First, various other things like that these students are going to essentially play along with. So we want it to be the best we can. During COVID, we had to record, for concert band, we actually recorded one instrument at a time in a basement studio outside of Washington, D.C. And it was service band musicians, but literally they came one at a time. And so unfortunately we had to record a click track that way. It wasn't ideal, but we didn't have a choice, because I wanted to keep going. I wanted to keep pushing forward. And we're in a process of actually going back and re-recording some of those pieces that were sort of from that lost year, 2020, and put those back out and put real recordings out.
So is there a way to, you come out with new releases for this year?
Yeah.
How do you do here's great pieces that we already have that maybe you forgot about?
We try to do that with re-promotion. It's challenging because, it's like anything else, new and improved, Crest toothpaste, new and improved, or whatever, it's always that. That's kind of our society. But yeah, we do that. And the other thing that we really work hard on is we work hard on trying to get our music on festival lists.
Yeah.
Whether it's Texas, Florida, whatever festival list, any state.
What's that process?
It's a moving target. It changes. Committees change, how they do it changes, what information they want changes. How often they want it, it just really is state dependent. And some states don't even have it at all. Some states just say, well, if it's on the Texas list, you can play it. Or some states say you don't have to play off a list at all.
Yep.
So, it's ever changing, and it's something we have to stay on top of all the time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of our time to do that. And it's even worse when you then go down to solo and ensemble music and those lists. That's even more challenging and more time consuming.
I can't imagine.
So, I mean, that's also the benefit that we provide to a composer, because there's no way they're going to have time to submit to every state. There's no way they're going to have time to pay for professional recordings. There's no way they're going to be able to send out 100,000 catalogs to band directors, orchestra directors, choir directors all over the country. It costs an enormous amount of money to do that, but it's the only way we're going to be able to get that music out to these people. And make sure that the teachers can find the great music that we have to offer, because we have great composers in our catalog, and that list is growing, which is very exciting. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great.
Excellent.
If you could take a moment and go to thegrowingbanddirector.com to give at least $5 or $3 a month, and it helps the content continue to be created for you to help our profession grow. Let's go back to our scheduled episode. Excelcia Music Publishing is proud to sponsor the Growing Band Director podcast. Excelcia Music Publishing provides new music for concert band, jazz ensemble, solo and ensemble, and books for all levels and occasions, including a specially curated and robust selection of music for your contest and festival performances. A variety of overtures, marches, and lyric works included on numerous state lists await. Select music that's perfect for your contest and festival needs at excelciamusic.com. That's EXCELCIA music.com. I want to thank Austin Custom Brass for being a sponsor of today's podcast. Trent Austin started this wonderful shop back in the Boston area many years ago and has moved it to Kansas City. Check out their unique line of doublers instruments that are perfect for students, band programs, and players of all ages. The Austin Custom Brass Doublers flugelhorn is their most popular selling instrument, available in 5 different beautiful finishes. These flugelhorns come with a case in Austin Custom Brass's Fab 5 mouthpiece. The Doublers flugelhorn offers a quality sound, playability, and affordability. Get one for yourself or your whole trumpet section today. Call Austin Custom Brass at 816-410-0826. They are located in Kansas City, Missouri, but they ship all over the country, and they're wonderful humans and great people to hang with. Austin Custom Brass works with band programs from all over the country. They can provide a bid to you today, work within your school's budget, and accept POs. Call their team today at 816-410-0826 or email at info@austincustombrass.com.
I'm just not good at some.
Welcome back to the Growing Band Director Podcast here with Tony Susi. Tony, you were on twice, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Two different episodes.
One was the rhythm section, and the other was the pedagogical practices, which was in prep for Midwest last year.
Last year, yep. And we're actually here at Midwest now, 2024. Thanks for being here. Yeah, we're here at the Exceclia booth.
Good place to be.
So we were just talking about Michael Sweeney.
Yes, I just found out from Hal Leonard that Michael Sweeney is his last year with them. He's 40 plus years. If you've never done any Michael Sweeney pieces, no matter what level he writes for, though, I thought he was excelled at the middle school level. I did so many of his works.
And I've said it, like on the jazz side of things, I think he's changed music education.
Jazz, I don't know if I've ever done his jazz.
Really? I mean, because he has a knack, as many writers do, but his is so good of taking a serious piece of music and making it attainable and accessible. So the amount of kids who've played Duke Ellington, Count Basie, and all that through Mike Sweeney is just amazing. It's funny, you know, because like you don't want to do one composer too much, but if there's any composer that I would ever do, then like I say this with you in the room, but like Mike Sweeney, you could just like all day long.
It's interesting. Maybe I have done Mike Sweeney because it would have been as an arranger, like you're saying, because one of my programming philosophies with jazz band was always to introduce the kids to authentic jazz music, not just to play the stuff like I'm writing original pieces, but you want them to know from the masters. And doing arrangements of, like he's mentioned, Ellington and Basie, you know, Miles Davis. So, now I'm thinking, so what is it? That's Michael Sweeney. Now that, as soon as I was like, I'm sure I've done that.
He's got a Freddie Freeloader chart too that has a little soli with from the Miles solo.
But what first came to mind is his concert band stuff, because the concert band stuff was originals that I did of his. Not so much arrangements, but
his caravan chart too is so good. If anybody's looking for like
I'm thinking Ellington, not thinking Michael Sweeney with that. Yeah.
So tell us what's going on here at Midwest for you.
Working the vendor booths. I have stuff with Excelcia and Pandora and Wingert Jones, which are all under the same umbrella. I'm officially here with the Grand Mesa Strings because I also have pieces, new pieces with them, and I have new pieces out with C. Allen Publications. Little jazz, little strings, little concert band, which I'm knock on wood.
And you did a clinic with my band on a snappy march that is called
the First Responders.
First Responders. That's right. That was really cool. It was a, it's like, it was just a march that's a little bit different and had a great message behind it too. Can we just talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I was inspired to write that during COVID. I wrote 2 pieces during COVID. My wife's in the medical field, and my relatives also, several cousins, and they were the healthcare heroes during that time. And I was like, nobody's written a piece. So I have a piece, Healthcare Heroes for Concert Band. The other was the first responders, who were the ones that were on the front line of all the COVID treatments and putting themselves at risk. And again, I looked up and I was surprised, other than there's a Red Cross march that John Philip Sousa wrote, that there's really nothing for the first responders. So that was the inspiration. And then I'm a big fan of John Williams. So I'm like, well, I want to write it in a modern, contemporary, but I wanted it to be in the traditional form of a Sousa March, American March. So you can teach march form, but do something in a more contemporary sound. And that was
my kids loved it. Yeah.
Good.
I loved it too. I didn't mean for that to come out weird. Yeah, I loved it too.
I'm thrilled. One of our community bands, we have quite a few for a little state of Connecticut, the Plainville Wind Ensemble. Their conductor, Ken Begley, won the American prize this year.
I know that name.
Yeah, I'm sure you've talked to Ken. He's going to be.
No, I haven't talked to him, but I've heard his name.
I'll have to tell him to stop by and get on your podcast. And a year before that, the Plainville Wind Ensemble won the American prize for best community band in America. So they're hot. And they're going to do a concert this spring of strictly Connecticut composers. And I'm thrilled. And they're going to play the First Responders March. They just did a Veterans Day concert. It was phenomenal. And they played my Portrait of a Patriot for that. So I'm a big fan of Ken's. He's like,
what grade is that Portrait of a Patriot?
They put it as a 2, but it's a 2.5 for sure. It's 3 movements. It's a suite. I taught it in Coventry part of my career, and we were at Captain Nathan Hale Middle School because Nathan Hale was born in Coventry. It's a tourist attraction in our town.
Is that where Coventry Carol comes from?
No. No.
Totally different. Okay.
No, that's all right. But Nathan Hale is not just our namesake for the school. He is our official state hero for the state of Connecticut. And I'm like, there's no pieces out there that I'm aware of about him.
Yeah.
And it would be perfect for our group to premiere, which they did when it was written. But so it's 3 movements, each one supposed to tell the life story of him. and the 6/8 section is what makes it a 2.5. But it's nice contrasting. The middle is his homestead, which is in Coventry still. Like I said, it's a big tourist attraction, historical landmark, very pastoral. And I incorporated authentic Revolutionary War music throughout the piece.
That's
and
cool.
then original stuff. Yeah. That's
how many percussion parts, if you remember? Ballpark.
a decent amount because I would say 6.
Right.
There's definitely temp snare, crash cymbal, suspended cymbal. There's definitely probably 2 mallets, xylophone, and bells. And beyond that, there's tambourine, and there's some shaker, I think, too. But you don't need one player for each part. It's written so you can do it with probably 5.
Speaking of Connecticut heroes, we lost Jeff Smith last year. Right. What a tragedy. You got a Jeff Smith story that comes off the top of your head, or words you want to say about that?
Oh my, where do I start with Jeff Smith? We actually, one of the last things we did together was adjudicate a festival, which was really cool. He was like the benchmark you strived to in Connecticut for directors. His program, his teaching was so highly respected. He gave me a big break. He was president of CMEA, and I used to always pitch my bands to perform there. And when he was president, he's like, get this guy in. But he was like, it really helped push to get me in front of the other directors with my groups. And
he was the reason that you were on the podcast at first, because he's like, you got to get my friend Tony Susi. And then he gave you a compliment too. When we saw you online, he's like, man, you haven't aged at all.
It's music. Music keeps you young. It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for stopping by. This has been
thank
fun.
you. It's always 100%. Fun to be on your podcast.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm thrilled that you're right in the heart of,
as Clark Terry would say, keep on keeping on. Yeah. All right.
All right. Enjoy the conference.
All right. I'm here with Steven Rosenhaus. You're from New York.
New York City, born and bred.
Composer. And who are you a composer with?
As far as
which
publishers?
Companies? Yeah.
Well, Kendor, Wingert Jones, Excelcia, Carl Fisher / Northeastern, Chose, Ludwig Masters, Kaiser, and
you write for band, among other things.
Among other things.
Yep.
I basically write for anything somebody wants. I've even written a piece for 3 Alphorns.
Wow. Okay. So you're based out of New York.
Yes.
We're going to talk about a couple things that we kind of hit on a little bit. You were talking about a piece that you wrote about JFK called JFK, A Profile. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. It's a piece for narrator and large ensemble, and I wrote it in 2 versions, one for full orchestra and one for band. And that was a consortium commission. So I wound up with 3 performances of each version within 1 year.
Wow.
I wrote the piece for John F. Kennedy's 100th birthday in 2017. That was the impetus for it. And the first band performance was by the Virginia Grand Military Band with Laura Schissel conducting.
Wow.
That was cool.
How did you come up with the narration of it? Did you tell his life story? Did you use his quotes? How did
basically I went to all of his speeches as first a congressman, then as a senator, and then as president. And I took excerpts from all these different speeches and developed a thread for them to show what kind of a man he was.
Yep. And the grade level, I forget what you said.
Yeah, it's the band version is about a grade 3.
Okay.
And the orchestra version's a little bit harder. It's a 3.5.
Okay. Beautiful. And where can they get it?
Me.
You. Okay.
Just contact me, srosenhaus@earthlink.net.
Okay. Do you have a website that they search for you too?
I'm on Facebook and I have a SoundCloud page. I don't have a web page as of now.
Okay.
I hope to in the near future.
So they can get it from you.
Yeah.
And there's a recording on the page.
Yeah. On SoundCloud, there's the orchestra version, and on YouTube, you can find at least 1 performance of the band version.
Great. You're telling me about a book that you wrote too, A Concert Composer's Business Handbook. You said this was the things that composers never learn.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Well, no, that's precisely it.
Okay.
When you study composition, I should preface that by saying I taught composition as an adjunct at NYU for about 30 years. And this book is the result of all the questions I got from my students because nobody would ever explain it to them in another class.
Interesting.
So we talk about the book talks about copyright, contracts, what is a commission, how do commissions work, performing rights organizations like ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, anything except the act of composing is in this book.
That's great. And who's it going to be published with? Do I have this here?
This is published by Rowman and Littlefield.
Okay. How, if people want to, you said it's coming out in April.
It's coming out in April. It's available for pre-sale on both the Rowman and Littlefield website and also on Amazon and probably other booksellers.
Beautiful. So they should pick it up for sure. I would hope so. And lastly, we're going to talk about, you said the first piece you ever wrote was written for the Naval Academy Band?
The first major piece that I wrote for band was for the Naval Academy Band. And that's as a result of coming to Midwest. I was standing at another publisher's booth because they were publishing most of my stuff at that point. And the conductor of the band at the time, Don Keller, came by and we started talking. And he said, "Oh, my band's celebrating its 150th anniversary." And me being a little bit naive and stupid said, "Hey, that's a great excuse to commission a work." He said, "You think?" We hit it off. And he said, "Come down, meet the band, and you'll write something for us." And I said, "How big a piece?" He said, "Whatever you want." I said, "A symphony?" He said, "Yeah, please." So I wrote the symphony. And it's called Symphony for Band Academy. 4 movements, about 25 minutes, depending on how you conduct it.
Yeah. Where is it available?
Again, that's through me.
Okay. I mean, anything 25 minutes is going to be hard. Like, even if it was whole notes, it's not a grade 1. So what grade level are we talking? Like 5 on that?
No, actually it's about a 4.
Okay.
Because halfway through the composing process, John Keller called me. He said, "By the way, would you like to conduct the premiere?"
There goes the 7/8.
All those 5/16.
Yeah, right.
Like, no, I'm not going to do the second half of the Writer's Spring. But we still had some fun. But I have to tell you, standing in front of some of the world's best musicians, which that band contains, and knowing that they all know how to use firearms is very scary. So I did something to break the ice. This was in May, and they were rehearsing in a basement, and it gets very hot in that room. Long story short, I had a special T-shirt made up that I wore under my regular shirt. I was wearing a shirt like this, long sleeves, and they were all wearing their short sleeve uniforms because of the warmth. And we get through the first movement, no problem. Before we started the second movement, I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, you'll excuse me. You're comfortable. I'm not. I'm going to take off my shirt." Nobody cared, and that's fine. I started taking off my shirt, and across the front it said, "Blame the composer." I finished taking off my shirt. I turn around to put it down, and they see the back of the shirt says, "Blame the conductor."
And you were both.
Broke the ice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, really nice to meet you.
Same here.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We sincerely appreciate you taking your valuable time and listening to the Growing Band Director podcast. Your students are very lucky to have a band director like you. If you have any suggestions for episode topics or think you have an area of expertise to share on a show with us, please reach out. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your band director friends to subscribe as well. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to The Growing Band Director. See you next week.